Hi, everyone. Welcome to our epic expert interview. And today with us, we have Shey from Numbers by Shey. Welcome.
Thank you. It's fun to be here. I always like to talk about my passion.
Well, then let's dive right in. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about your business as a numerologist?
Yes, well, I tried to make it a business, and anytime I tried to push it, it never went anywhere. Excuse me, I had a website and I tried to promote myself, and it just fell flat, and I just got too entangled in it. And the minute that I backed off and said it'll go where it goes, where spirit wants it to go, then people find me. And I don't promote, and I don't have a website anymore. All I have is a Facebook page and an email address, and people still find me. I did a reading actually this morning and have more booked. So I'm pretty busy with it. So it is what it's supposed to be. And what it is actually is I do numerology charts, which is, it's a very complex sort of interpretation of the esoteric meaning of numbers. Not like the adding part, that's the easy part, but what are these numbers actually saying, and what do they mean together? So I look at people's birth dates and their names, and with that information, I can draw a pretty good black and white snapshot of who they are, why their soul incarnated in human form, what they're here to get, and what is going to happen in the near future, because numerology has a wonderful forecasting, forecasting element to it. So that's what I do.
Well, that's great. And both Lori and I have experienced your readings, so they're completely amazing. And you have an interesting style with them where you combine more than just numerology. Do you want to talk a little bit about your style of reading and what people can expect if they come to get one from you?
Oh, sure. I don't think anybody does what I do. I've spent 25 years doing my own thing and doing 1,000 readings, and I just know what works, and I get the feeling for what people need to hear. But I do pull in intuitive interpretation of the energies of their numbers, but also I use Chinese astrology, because that fills it in, and astrology. So with those three things, you can get a pretty good idea of the treasures within a person. And that's what I always tell them. When you get a numerology reading, you get your chart done, you're being given your owner's manual. And it's, this is who you are. This is the truth of who you were on the day you were born, before all of the influences of the people who love and guide you started to knock you off course. But this is ultimately the pure version of you. And so a lot of times they'll get at the reading and they'll be like, I don't know. I've had couples come to see me, and she'll be going and he'll be going. So we're not the best observers of our lives. So when you get a reading with me, you want to find out the truth of who you are. It really does require that you become the observer and be invested in the patterns in your life and look at how things have evolved for you. And all of this can be found in the birth date. As I said, the birth date is the soul's journey through the human physical experience. It is called the path that we have to walk, or the challenge that we have to face. And the name that we are given on the day we're born tells who is walking the path. Sometimes that's compatible with the life path, and those would be the people who dance and frolic through life and everything runs smoothly for them and they never have any problems. And then there are the rest of us who are like, oh my God, this is such a hard thing. But yeah, sometimes our names, the energies in our names, are not compatible with what our souls came here to get, and that's part of the fun. But the main thing is being aware that these energies of the numbers are playing in your life all the time. They're within you. They're expressed externally. They're in the rhythms and the cycles of our lives. We can find out the periods, the pinnacles, the personal years. There's so much involved in getting getting your chart done, and so much to learn about ourselves. So that's how I got started with it. In fact, is I rebuilt my life, my truth, based on numerology, put my life back together after a complete and total breakdown. And I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do to try to pull myself back into some semblance of sanity. And numerology did that for me. It put me back on course and helped me to understand my truth and my passion. Um, and now I've walked it for the last 25 years since that time, and helped other people find it too. So it's powerful stuff.
Can you go into a little more detail for people who really don't know numerology, all the different aspects? So when you add up for the birthday, that's like just one aspect. So can you talk a little bit about the different aspects, like the life path and...
Sure. Sure. Yeah, it's so second nature to me that I just assume everybody just speaks the language. No, I'm happy to. Yeah, when we add up all the numbers in our birthday and reduce to a single digit, that number carries a specific vibration. So I look at the numbers 1 through 9. Number 1 is always about new beginnings. Number 2 is about partnership. 3 is communication. 4 is structure. 5 is freedom. 6 is home and family. 7 is the mystic, or the, as I call it, the Mr. Spock energy, the scientist. 8 is the manager, the natural leader, all about money. And number 9 is about fulfillment, unconditional love, completion. So when I add up somebody's birth date and I get one of those numbers, then I know why, as I said, their soul incarnated, the lessons they came to learn, the energies that are going to be at play in their lives. For example, if you have a number 8 life path, then you can be assured that at some point you're going to be dealing with money or things of value. You are also going to be put in positions of leadership, management, and authority. Now, because we have free will, some people with 8 life paths file bankruptcy. Some people build great fortunes. It just depends on what they do with the energies that they have been given. So I look at that life path. That is the life path number. I look at the day reduced to a single digit. So the very day that you're born, that's a gift that you have been given to fulfill your life path. So it's a helper. And then I look at the name, and there are 2 numbers that I get from a person's name. One is the expression number. That's like who I'm meeting now. When I meet you, that expression number is the energy you will radiate to me that you feel comfortable presenting to me. So it's like, this is who I am. I'm all business, or I'm friendly, or I'm warm, or I'm healing, or whatever you feel like showing within that number's influence. And then there's the heart's desire number, which lives inside of all of us and is the secret center, the true motivator of who we are. So if you have a 2 expression, excuse me, that's about partnership. And it's very warm and healing and comfortable. But if you have an 8 heart's desire, the person that you show me is going to be very supportive and helpful. But when push comes to shove, you'll have a steel spine. With that number 8, you'll get pushed so far, and then you'll start pushing back. So that's when the 8 would show up, is if somebody pushed a little too much past your comfort level. So when I look at these, I call them the big 4, the life path, the birthday, the expression, and the heart's desire. When I look at those 4 numbers, I have pretty good, I don't want to say a box, but I have a pretty good foundation to tell us who that person is and how you're going to respond to life. So what I always say when I do a reading is, what I give people is 1/3 of the whole picture. This first third is the truth of who you were, your treasures, your abilities, your skills, your challenges, your weaknesses, your fears. All of that is written in your birth date and in your name. The second part of what makes us and makes up our lives is the influence that has happened through our lives. Were you born rich or poor? Were you loved or abused? What's your story? How educated are you? How how much have you learned of practical experience, and all of that, that sits in the centerpiece. The third part is free will. So yeah, you were born with these numbers. Now you know, this is your owner's manual. Here are all the influences that you had. Now what are you going to do with it? That is where we have responsibility to fulfill our destinies, and where some people file bankruptcy and some people build a fortune with their numbers. So usually what I get when I do a numerology chart is a hodgepodge of these numbers. Some people might have two the same number of their big four. Most of the time it's four different numbers. It's my job, after all these years of doing this and experiencing and observing and living it, just to tell people how those numbers work for them. How do these numbers, do they hang out? Are they compatible? Are they not harmonious? I've told people, you have a great big conflict in your chart. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, no, it's not bad. Conflict is the inhale and exhale of life. So it's, what makes the pearl. So it's okay. And usually when I tell them about themselves, they're like, yeah. So what I say to them, what I do is I pull all of this information from somewhere out here. I put it into a form that you can use, and I say, there you go. This is you. Now, what are you going to do with it? And so it's much fun, and I enjoy every reading that I do. It's like being given a gift. Anytime I get somebody's birth date, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to know about you. I won't do business with you unless you give me a birth date, so I know who I'm dealing with. Are you an ox? Are you an 8 ox? Okay, yeah, we might be able to work together. So that sort of thing is much fun.
So you talked about influence. So tell us how you were influenced to get involved with numerology and esoteric, and
yeah, that is a dramatic story, and I am going to do my best to give the Cliff Notes version here. But I was raised in a Baptist environment. I went to the Baptist church when I was a kid, did it all on my own. I've always been religious, not really religious, spiritual. I've always felt a presence. I always felt like I was being watched. But within the structure of religion, that just meant God was watching over me, right? Well, later on in my life, in my early 40s, things went south for me with my relationship, my husband of 19 years, and I had 2 daughters, and that all just broke apart, and I had no coping skills. I had nothing. I didn't know anything about anything esoteric. I had no idea about astrology or tarot cards, or it was all like woo-woo, scary stuff. So I had a breakdown because I had no ability to stand on my own. I just wasn't given those skills as a kid. I had a very strict upbringing and not really allowed to think for myself. And so here I was out in the world with 2 teenage daughters trying to figure out what to do, and I broke. And what happened was that parts of me that were repressed and weren't allowed to come out over my lifetime because it wasn't proper or whatever, they started to speak through me. And the physical world with the medical diagnosis was more scary than the reality of what happened. That I was diagnosed with multiple personalities, and ultimately over a year's time had 12 fully functioning personalities and a whole bunch of parts and pieces that would show up. And along with those came the guides or the others. And it was quite the circus. It was crazy. And that's how I judged it. How I judged it for a long time was my crazy time. But what I've come to realize after all these years of integrating and interpreting what happened was that it was a spiritual awakening of epic proportions. It was my soul just breaking free and my emotions breaking free. And because the identity that I had at the time wasn't strong enough to handle it, they just popped out right past it and came out and spoke their piece. And after going through all of that, listening to them, learning about myself, I pulled out my numerology books because the identity that I had known was gone. I couldn't pull it back together. I could never go back. I had to move forward. I didn't know where to start. I pulled out my numerology books and I looked up my kids, and I felt like I was introduced to them for the first time. My daughters were just, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why this one is different than this one, and why I can't raise them the way I was raised and have the same expectations. So I learned about them, and I learned about my friends, and I learned about everybody I knew, and I read about myself, and I didn't see anything in there. Like, why does numerology fit everybody but me? What is wrong with me? And well, of course I'd be the weirdo doing all this stuff that's going on. Well, actually, what it was that I had been knocked so far out of alignment with my nature, my intuition, my spiritual powers and abilities, my ability to connect to the other side was never nurtured. It was repressed. And once I got into the numbers and started to get stronger and started to see these or feel this energy rising within me, I rebuilt my life based on numerology and Chinese astrology and astrology. I'm a Cancer rising. So there's all that sensitivity. So all these things came together to put me back together. And I was stronger, and I was happier, and I was healthier, in spite of the judgment of the medical community that I was dysfunctional or broken. I look back on that time and I bless it. And I am grateful. I'm thankful for what happened to me, because if that hadn't happened, I would never have found my way to my truth. And so I said, if I can do this for myself, as broken as I feel and as I've been, I can do it for others. And so I started doing numerology charts, very basic, very little bit at a time. And I saw amazing, miraculous transformations before my very eyes of people who, I mean, tears and understanding and awakening. They're like, oh my gosh, you mean this is who I am? I don't have to try to fix myself. And I tell them over and over, you are perfect just the way you are. You just have to own your strength and your power. And no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that nobody ever told you the truth about who you are. You've let the world influence you, as we all have. We're conditioned, we're influenced, we're told who and what and why. But numerology broke me free from that. And since that time, I have done, as I said, probably 1,000 numerology charts for people. And I see people come home, and I see them power up before my eyes. And what I like to think is that I give them permission to be themselves, because I am an objective observer. Most of the people who come to me don't know me. I don't know them. Here I am handing them their life, their heart and soul. And they're like, for the first time in my life, I feel understood. I feel validated. And that's what I love, is when I tell them, you are unique. There's nobody else like you, and you cannot compare yourself to anyone. So that's what I love about what I do. It's empowering. And that's how I came to do it. It came from dysfunction and brokenness, came wholeness and health and healing. And those others, those guides, as they called themselves, that came through, they're still with me. Them and more. It broke free a channel that I always knew was there, but I couldn't access it until the old me literally broke into pieces, parts, aspects, personalities. And one other thing I have to add about that is that what it did was it broke me away from reality, the illusion. And I no longer try to fit into that, and I no longer see it the same way. I have been at least 12 different people looking in the mirror and not recognizing the face that I see, and not owning it, and knowing that it doesn't matter what face we wear. It doesn't matter how we look. what matters is what comes through us, that light that shines through us. And so I don't worry about it. I don't worry about trying to keep up an image or maintain a respectability. I'm free to be me. And that numerology did that for me.
It's such an
And I
incredible
did write a book about it. So, so that helped. That's good therapy.
it's such an incredible story, and that you did share it in a book, which is just a fascinating story, and
Thank you.
a page turner, a real page turner. As I recall, it's been a while since I read it, and if ever there was a time for people, like right now, it just seems like so many people are just looking for answers. They're looking for that permission you talked about, because there is that element of our society and our culture, where we do just get socialized into wanting certain things that, or at least we think we want them, because that's what the information we're being fed. And so I just think that this is a great opportunity for people who, through 2020, who have come back to a point where they're like, wow, I need to reprioritize. And they realize maybe I don't really have a handle on who I am, that that this would be a great place for them to start. And the book was deeply moving. So can you talk a little bit more about the book?
Yeah, it is word for word what happened. The friends that were helping me, she was taking notes. She said, someday you're going to need these. She's sitting there scribbling what was coming through and who was coming through. And it was like a revolving door of personalities and guides. And my friend was keeping up with all of that, and she was right. But one of the guides said, at the end, the last time one of them appeared was in 2001 or 2002. So I've been me for a while. And by the way, I did legally change my name. I couldn't even go back to being the same person that I was. I just was not that created form that had lived all those years. I was me, and I had to claim a name that resonated with me, which of course, very much about numerology. But she came in and she said, I am going to help you write your story and write a book. And gosh, she did it. And her name is Liza, and she wrote her piece. And it is something that I refer to over and over again. It is the wisdom of the ages that came through me, not from me, that's for sure. So she did come back, and I published this book in 2015 under a pseudonym, because it is a true story, and these people are still out there running around living their lives. They wouldn't publish it if I didn't change the name. So that's the only thing that's different in this book, is that my own name as the author is different, and so are all the characters, who are actually, they're characters all right, but they're actually real people. I don't know if this will come through backwards or not, but this is the book, Find Your Bridge. And you can find it on Amazon for like $4. So if you want to download it onto a reader, but the whole story, how this all took place, is in there. It's 1 year of a transformation from being basically an empty shell of a human being struggling to try to make sense of the world, to someone who's finally for the first time alive. And I have been more and more alive every year since that time. And so yeah, it was fun. It was therapeutic, of course, to write it, but to actually be able to go back and refer to it now, and it's even more valid now than it was then, that's huge. That's immense to me. I refer to it over and over because, like I said, the information is timeless and priceless to me. So yeah, it was much fun, and I haven't promoted it much, but the people who have come across it, who have read it, have been profoundly impacted by it. I've heard that over and over again. And I do want to mention something that you said, Lori, about people who are trying to find themselves now. We left 1,000 years of masculine energy in 1999, 2000. 1,000 years of conquest and exploitation and conflict and adventure and moving forward and growth and industry and inventions and all of that. That was all a product of 1,000 years. But now we're in the 2000s. Now we're in the territory of, I like to say, the great mother, the number two. Number two is all about teamwork, partnership, cooperation, tolerance, inclusion, all of that. And what we're seeing at this very moment is a battle between the two. One is going out. Those old systems are imploding and they're not even holding themselves up anymore, while the new way of thinking is coming in. And you can see the battle lines drawn between people who are trying to hold on to what is comfortable and familiar to them, which is the 1000s, and the people who are ready to embrace the new energy. 1,000 years of the number two. When we shifted, we didn't just shift a century, we shifted a millennia, and that is huge. So between 1900 and 1920, we had a world war, we had a plague, women were given the right to vote, children's labor laws were passed. There was a huge amount of unrest for just that 20-year period, 1900 and 1920. Cars came in, women's skirts shortened, their hair shortened. It was a time of immense change. And we're 20 years into a millennia shift. This is not a surprise that we're feeling this energy. So that's what I'm speaking to here, is that people are feeling lost in this new energy. Even the tarot cards, when I do a tarot spread now, they don't read the same. They're different interpretation that's coming through for me, because we're in new territory. And you can see all of that and more when you work with the numbers. You know what they mean. So people are trying to find their bearings in an energy that is not familiar to them. And most of us are products of that 1000, that number one. So most of us are coming out of that protectiveness of the father into the warmth and caring and inclusiveness of the mother. So it's really interesting stuff. It's not just about adding up a few numbers and finding out what your life path is. There's so much more involved in it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We're in such an interesting time for sure. And I agree with Lori. I read the book as well. It's fabulous. So at the end, we'll come back around and make sure that you let people know again how they can get that.
Okay.
Going back to numerology, when you're saying it's much more than just a few numbers. I know that there's other things, like when we've had readings with you, you've talked about pinnacles and other
Yes.
kinds of things. So can you kind of give people just a short overview, right? It's like we've got those four main numbers, and you gave like one or two words about each individual number, but tell them about some of those other backdrops and how it's all fascinating. It's all fascinating. And
Well, yeah, and it's important. Bringing this up, thank you. It is important, because what most people, sure.
I just wanted to say one other thing when you're doing that too, because I don't know if you'll mention it, you probably will, but can you talk a little bit about too, like people have a personal year number and then we have a collective year number?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love it. I love every bit of it. So what people don't know, what most people don't know, because I wish this was taught. I wish I could do a numerology chart for every new child, every baby born. I would say, this is what you have. This is how you need to take care of it. But our lives work in 9-year cycles. So if your life path is number 3, you were born in the 3rd year of a 9-year cycle. If it's number 8, you were born in the 8th year of a 9-year cycle. You finish that 1 through 9. And then you start your 9-year cycles over again. And this energy shifts on or about January 1st. So that's why we welcome the new year. Of course, the number changes on January 1st. The energy will shift. I've felt it sometimes up to a week before the 1st of January, sometimes a few days after. I will feel this shift in energy. Well, it's that personal year that you're talking about. We each have our own personal years based on our birth dates. So on January 1st, if 2020 is a 5 personal year for you, Then on or about January 1st, you're going to go into a 6 through 2021 and a 7 through 2022 till you get to the 9. And then you let go of this phase of your life, this 9-year cycle, and you start something new. So I like to think of it as each year on around January 1st, we enter a new playground, and it has new rules and new kids to play with. But we can expect that the energy from the previous year is going to carry over. So when people struggle, they're really struggling, I'm like, hold on, the energy is going to change for you. It changes month by month. Every month has its own number. Every year has its own number. And you were talking about global. I do, on my Facebook page, I do a daily post, like a horoscope, about what the next day is going to bring. And so like right now, 2020, simple, adds up to a 4. We're all in a global 4 year. What is the 4 about? It's about your foundation. What builds, what creates the, what is the substance of the foundation? Home, health, family, work, whatever system is supporting you. The 4 is about being practical, being organized, but if you're not healthy, if you're not financially stable, if your relationship isn't as you would like it to be, it's going to get hit in a 4 year. What has happened in 2020? Plague and problems and personal things going on and relationships ending and all hell breaking loose. I'm just sitting back here going, it's a 4. It's going to hit every weakness, every crack in your foundation. If you have a strong foundation, you're golden. If you don't, that number 4 is going to come in and it's going to point it out and expect you to fix it. Next year, we all go into a 5, massive change beyond what we can even anticipate right now. Big shifts in everything, freedom in a lot of ways. But within this background of the global, we're all in this global energy, but like you might have an 8 personal year, and Lori, you might, and I don't know, I haven't looked at your birth dates lately, but you might have a 2 personal year that overlays the global. So when you do a numerology chart, I have to be very aware that the person is in this 4, but they're also in their own energy. And then to complicate things more, which is why you need an expert, these 9-year cycles that roll through our lives are also, they become pinnacles and periods, and they're the backdrop energies that are working behind the scenes. So if I can take a second here, this is the best way to visualize. We have 3 periods in a lifetime if we live past the 50s into 60s. We have 4 pinnacles. So when we have period change, you only get 2 in a lifetime. 2 period changes, 3 pinnacle changes. So a period change would look like, in one period you're living in the mountains, and the next period hits and you move to Miami Beach. You know that something has changed here. We're not in Colorado anymore. So you're like, oh my gosh. And this is going on energetically in our lives. So when we have these midlife crises, they're most likely a period or a pinnacle shift that hit home. So the pinnacles are like, okay, you're living in the mountains during this period. This is the village that you're living in, what you do for a living, and all the people you hang out with. So when you have a pinnacle shift, you just move to a different village in the mountains. Different people, different stuff, but you're still in the mountains. You have a period shift. I hope I'm not making this too complicated, but you have a period shift. You're moving the whole shebang to the beach. So it is a big deal. And our lives are not random. And the energies that we're going to live in are predictable. I can tell you what the 5 indicates. Can I tell you specifically what's going to happen for you in a 5 year? No, because that would be violating your free will. But I can tell you change is going to happen for the world next year in a lot of different areas. But we'll survive the 4 and our foundations will be stronger, or we'll have to build new ones. Maybe that's part of what's going to happen next year. It's about expansion and building too. So who knows as we're sitting here during the election. So anyway, does that answer? I hope it's not too much. I tend to give lots of information.
No, I think it's a good intro. Um, in the beginning, you talked a little bit about people having like incompatible numbers,
Mhm.
perhaps so can you explain a little bit about that and what that might look like and how it might present itself to somebody?
Yeah, those are compatibility charts that I do for people. And the people who come to me and say, why do I get along with this kid and this kid I don't get. I do not get this kid. It's like, well, this kid's energy is not in harmony, in sync with your number. So there's going to be friction. And you can make use of it and grow from it, or you can just be irritated. But basically, the numbers that sit next to each other do not like each other. They don't get each other. They are the inhale and the exhale. One doesn't understand two. Two thinks three is a flibbertigibbet. Three hates the structure of four. Four wants to bring the five back home again. It goes like that. So the odd numbers are the troublemakers, I say, and the even numbers are the cleanup crew. So the one makes trouble and the two comes in and fixes it, and three makes trouble and four comes in and puts it all back in order, and the five wanders off and makes trouble, and the six brings it home and makes some soup. It's really interesting. So when I do a compatibility chart, say a couple has numbers that aren't compatible, then we look at the bridge number. And that bridge number tells us what will make those two numbers play nice together. So for example, if you have a 7 life path and if you have a 4 life path, this is the only time subtraction plays in numerology. Subtract the lower number from the higher number. Even I can do that math. And so the bridge number between the 7 and the 4, of course, is 3. So what do you need in order to make those two numbers work together? Communication and play. That's it. If you have a 4 life path and an 8 life path, then the bridge number is 4. They want stability, especially mostly financial stability more than anything. They'll be more business partners than lovers. But that's how you check the compatibility of numbers. You subtract the lower from the higher, you look at the one that's left, and you understand. You have to understand what the numbers represent, though, otherwise it doesn't do you much good. But it's not hard to get a basic understanding of what the numbers mean. They look like the energies they represent. So you want me to do a quick, easy visual? This is something that you can take with you. Number 1 stands alone. It doesn't bend. It's hard. It's not easy to hug. It wants to be left alone. Number 2 is springy. It'll come back. It'll give you 10 chances. You can step on it and it will keep coming back and forgiving you and being your support and coming back until it's had enough. Number 3 looks like it's got its arms around you. I don't think you can see me with my narrow thing, but it puts your arms around people. It's social. It loves parties. It loves people. It loves to talk. It loves gossip. The number 4 looks like a box. And that's what the 4 likes. It likes everything neat and tidy in the box. And it's very hard sometimes for it to expand enough to let new things into the box, but it wants to be practical and organized. Number 5, I see running through life like a scoop with its hair flying behind it. It wants to travel. It wants to taste and touch and talk to everybody. It wants to meet people. It wants to see things. It's very expansive and outgoing. Number 6, hugs. Number 6 is the mom energy. It's very nurturing, very home oriented. And so it squeezes, and sometimes it squeezes too hard and it smothers the people that it loves, but it'll just give you a giant hug. The number 7 says, don't come any closer. It's got its arm out saying, give me space. I need to think. They're very much the introverts. They want room to process and to think about things. And then they'll come out and maybe join the group, but they come across either as very snobbish or shy. People don't really know where they're coming from because it holds itself back. The 7 also points to the past. It knows where it's at. because it knows where it's been. So it always refers back to past stuff. Don't ever argue with a 7. They will pull up everything you ever did, ever said, and they will aim it at you and shoot you with it. So number 8, as above, so below. It is the infinity sign, and it is, and I have to say this, the 8 has a spiritual component to it as well. It is, you bring manifesting energy from spirit, bring it to earth, make it manifest, go back. I'm doing a figure 8 here. Go back, it gets energy to manifest with, and then it brings it into the physical form. So it's the builder, it's the creator of business. And the 9 is also a hugger, but it hugs the whole world. It's unconditional love. So all you have to do is see the numbers, and it will jog your mind about, oh, that's what this number means. The 6 is the mom that hugs you. The 5 wants to be free. Just have that visual, and it's a little bit easier to remember. So people even just watching this can take a little bit of that with wisdom with them.
And just a quick follow-up on that with the incompatibility. So you talked about subtracting the lower number from the higher number. Does that hold true for somebody who has like incompatible numbers in their own chart?
Yes. Yeah. And by knowing that those numbers might be conflicted, the way I see it, it just gives you more options. It's not like it's a handicap where it's like, oh my gosh, I got a 7 and I've got a 1, and I don't know if they're going to, you own it all. You're like, damn straight. This is who I am. And I have this big bag of 7s. I have this big bag of 5, and I have this big bag of 9. I have this big bag of 1, all in my chart. And I can grab from any of them when I have a conflict or I need to make a decision. I have all this energy available to me. So I don't see it as a conflict, but yet at the same time, it is if you don't work with it. Because then if you don't know your numerology chart, you're at the mercy of these energies that are right in front of you, in you, around you. And it's like having ice cream all around you and you don't see it. So it doesn't benefit you. So it's just a matter of understanding yourself, and that helps. So yeah, I've done readings where people have 3 of the same number of their big 4. 3 is the same number. They have a ginormous bag of that one number. They're very predictable. You can pretty much tell where they're going to go every time something happens in life. They're going to go to that big bag of that same energy, and they're going to pull from that. So those of us who have 4 different numbers, I don't, I have 3 7s, yeah. But I own that, and I love my 7s. But for people who have 3 or 4 of different numbers, even though they're incompatible, they expand the options and their ability to think their way through things. That's part of why I did the crash and burn back in 1996, is because I kept trying to go back to my big bag of 7s, and I needed to expand from that. And numerology taught me how to do that and how to value that energy within me.
It's just so fascinating. I remember, when we have gotten readings from you before, it's like, especially the first time we got a reading, it was like, how can Shey know all this about my childhood and all of these things when I just met her right now, like 5 minutes ago? So there's a lot to be said for, the science of numerology and the esoteric influences of numbers, and how the universe is just really made, its whole function is based on numbers. So
Yes.
pretty fascinating. But wanted to ask you a question, that if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would give myself permission to explore. That's all I've done since 96. I was so repressed and controlled as a kid. I was a good girl. And when you have a very strict, angry father and a mother who's ill, you don't get much opportunity to explore life or even ask about yourself. I just didn't search for me. And so when I hit the wall, there was no me for me to rely on. And I think if I could go back as I was growing up, I would revel in my energy and in my numbers and my ability to intuit and to process and to integrate information. There were so many years lost because I just was clueless. I was just asleep. And I would hope to wake up much earlier in my life. That's the thing about learning how to interpret the numbers. As I've gotten into my old age, I've been able to observe a whole lot of how they influence our lives. And looking back at my own childhood, I realized how secluded and lonely I was because I just didn't have the opportunity to explore life. So that's a good question. I wish I could do it, but not too late.
I wouldn't say you're in your old age, but
feels like it sometimes.
Let's jump forward, 10 or 20 years, and now you're looking back. What do you hope that like your biggest legacy or your biggest contribution is to your community or to the world at large?
Well, I do as many readings. I never turn. I made this pact with spirit long ago. I would never turn down anyone who came to me. And of course, I do charge for my services because of time and because they're of value. But I would like to think in a few years' time that I have given people permission, many, many people permission to be themselves as possible. I teach classes. I put my posts out every night on Facebook. I try to enlighten and encourage people and get them to see the bigger picture. Don't get lost in the drama. Don't drown in the illusion. There's so much magic going on. And I think that's really what spurs me forward, is that when I came to life, and I really was born in 1996, in spite of how I look. I was born, Shey was born in 1996. And the magic and the wonder and the love that I have found since then, I just want to share with other people and let them know there's so much more than pain and life's a bitch and then you die. That I want to give more than that.
So can you also tell people how they can connect with you, and then mention the types of readings? Because one thing we haven't talked about, but we've experienced it, is that you also do pet readings through numerology. So that's super fun, and it was great to have some insight into our pup. He's so sweet. So can you tell people what type of readings you do? You said compatibility, all those different ones, and then how they can connect with you to set up something.
Well, usually I do the basic numerology chart. I give the big four, so we get an idea of who they are, and then I will move into the forecasting piece. What is your personal year? What is next year going to bring for you? What is this month and the next month? What does this mean for you? It gets really personal and immediate, really fast. So I do a full-blown chart. It will take about 60 to 90 minutes. And I can be reached at my, I don't have, like I said, I don't have a website anymore, but I have an email address, numbers by Shey, SHEY, at gmail.com. Easy. I'm on Facebook, Numbers by Shey on Facebook. You can find me, like my page. You can send me a private message. That's where a lot of people find me. So either of those avenues are fine. And I always just know that people find me for a reason, and I can always find it in their chart. They'll say, I don't know why, but I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I don't know why. I have to talk to you now. I'm like, well, I know why, because you're changing a pinnacle, or you're about to explode into a 5, or, I can always find it. But yeah, I do that. And of course I could do your sweet boy, because I have a birth date and a name. That's all I need. Give me a birth date and a name and I am good to go. So I can do readings for pets, and I personally have a number 3 life path ox Bengal, and she's very different from our number 6 life path horse Bengal. So we know what the personalities are because of what I do. And I did a really fascinating reading the other day for a lady's whole family. She wanted to know about her kids and her partner. And she was like blown away by how she had seen these things in her children, but never really put it into that form of, now I understand them better. So yeah, what I'm doing is letting your kids have permission to be who they are. So yeah, it's good stuff. So you can find me if you're interested in a reading. Some people will do the initial reading, come back no sooner than 3 months. I will not see anybody until they've had time to process what I give. Because as fast as I've talked in this interview, that's why I record my readings. I record and I send it to you because I back up the dump truck and dump it on you. But they'll come back in about 6 months or a year for a tune-up, and we'll look at the next year coming in and what's going on in their lives. And I usually end up with a tarot spread just to get down and dirty with what's happening. So it's much fun, and everybody seems to enjoy it. So
yes, we could both speak from personal experience. What a wonderful numerologist you are, and how much you helped us, and even helped us in our relationship just by, I think we were one of those, we were pointing at each other like, yeah, that's
you were. Yep. And nobody could be at fault in that situation. You're like, damn it, I gotta own my stuff. Yeah, she's right. And I'm not ever invested. I just am the messenger. So don't kill the messenger. I just tell it like I see it.
Would you want to do so what is November hold for us, or November and December, to just kind of give people like some insight based on the number for this month and next month, and then we'll kind of wrap up. But it might be fun for people to
sure
look at that.
Sure. Yeah, and especially people will be watching this after this happens, but we just came out of October. And something that's interesting, I think, for everybody to know is that October is always the energy of the coming year. So it's like a portal, a window that opens, and you get to have a peek into what's coming for you next year. So everybody's now like, you're like, oh wait, what just happened in October? So even watching this, think back to October. What did you feel like? What were the indications and the influences that were going on in October? Because that's what you're going to be living in for an entire year next year. So at the end of October, that window closes, and then we move into the rest of our 4-year. So November is a 6-month in a 4-year. That's work. That is finding balance. That's balance in career and home life. That's trying to find stability. It can be very harsh energy if you want to go to the mad mom place. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's what's part of what's going on. Either way things go this November, and it's such a significant month. Everybody is going to be focused on their immediate families and how it impacts them. It's December that has me really curious, because December is a 7-month in a 4-year. And those are the 2 numbers that scare me the most when you put them together, because that 4 is so structured and the 7 is so out there that they do this. It's going to be interesting. So it's going to go one of 2 ways. Either we're going to get some intense personal come to Jesus meeting in December, or the storm will have passed. That is November, and it will be stormy. So that's the 6 and the 4 together. We'll have a timeout, like a peace on earth. We're tired. Let's put down the swords and the guns, and let's just take a break. And that's my hope, is that we we learn enough and we calm down enough in November that December gives us this peace that we so badly need after 2020. But the other thing, as far as the pandemic that's going on, is the second wave could easily hit. The 6 is also about caretaking, bringing comfort, healing. It's about health issues. And so we could see a nationwide or even a global second wave of the pandemic, and we'll be totally isolated in December. But something in December is going to pull us back within ourselves and force us to either think about what this year has meant. You just sit in time out and think about this. Or just finally just take a breather and be like, oh, thank God this year is over. So it could go one of two ways. And I'm really curious about what people decide.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. We could go on and on. It's so fascinating, and there's just so many rich and juicy layers to what you're talking about. We're really, really happy that you were able to join us today. Thank you so much.
You know, I appreciate being able to talk about this. It is my passion. It is my life's work. That's the nice thing about being in sync with your life path. When I found myself, I found my destiny, and I went with the flow of that number that is my reason for being here. And there's nothing better than being given your life path and then feeling the sense of rightness that comes with that. That's one of the gifts of numerology, is being able to give us that, so that we're not trying to be something or do something that isn't true to our nature. So thank you for letting me talk about my passion and my love. And yes, it's so multi-layered, it's insane. And we could go on for hours about it, and I would, but I will not. So, thank you both for this.
We appreciate it so much. Again, can you hold up the book and so they can see the title and the author name on it?
That's my, yep, it is Find Your Bridge. I don't know if that's coming through straight or not, by Jade Jarrett. Wasn't that creative of me? But it's actually me, and it can be found in hard copy out there if you want to pay for that on Amazon, or you can just download it for $4. And just Liza's stuff alone, like I said, even without all the drama of what happened to me, the information is pertinent now. It will be pertinent 1,000 years from now. It's wonderful stuff. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Visit Shey at Numbers by Shey on Facebook, and check her information out, her daily posts, and yeah, her readings are amazing. So thank you, and visit us at epicmag.org. Namaste.
Thank you.